This is our Louisiana School Boards Association. I come every year. It's a great opportunity for us to stay abreast of what's happening new in education, as well as all of the latest in technology that's available for our schools and for our children.
This is a gathering of school board members from across the state of Louisiana. We chose to hold this year's conference in Baton Rouge because this conference will perhaps lead into the legislative session that will be beginning shortly after this conference. It affords us an opportunity to meet with and talk with various legislators who will be coming over to visit with us and have lunch with us and so forth throughout the convention. So it provides us an opportunity to meet with them, have some discussions and debate over some of the issues involving education at this time.
This is really all about NSBA and the Louisiana School Boards Association coming together to create the most effective, the most impactful army of advocates for public education and school board governance. We've got to focus on the issues that unite us in the core issues about public education. We've got to come together to quit playing small and to unite all of the stakeholders in public education to ensure that our message resonates with great impact, because we have huge issues that are confronting us in public education. You've got forces that are very well organized and very well funded who are attempting to diminish local control, try to eliminate local school board governance. We have a federal government that seems intent on creating a national school board with Arne Duncan as America's school superintendent. We have a federal government that seems intent on encroaching in that local control for public education. And certainly, as we all know, then we are seeing those forces who wish to privatize public education, to take away what I believe is the promise of public education, to be able to offer each and every child that opportunity for a great education. And as a result, then what we must do is to come together, to fight and sharpen our advocacy and ensure that we're getting our message out there, that we oppose those who tend to perpetuate the myth that public education is failing, and to ensure that people understand that school board members are reform leaders and change agents.
We're here with local school board members who are volunteer elected officials, but they represent the public's interest in public education. So we're talking about them becoming an army of advocates to stand up to a lot of the interests that are really trying to destroy public education in this country.
As I travel around the country as a public speaker, everywhere I go, every local paper I pick up, there is a lot of discussion about transitioning and transforming public education. Number one, to take advantage of the technology. Number two, to ensure that it's properly funded. And number three, on what we should be teaching and how we should be teaching it. And not to be lost on us, here in Louisiana, we're in the midst of that transition also. Struggling for funding in a competitive environment when funding is scarce. Wanting to optimize technology so our students are prepared to meet the requirements of the future workforce, and to ensure that every child has an opportunity for a good public education.
I think the most important thing that we need to get accomplished in the Congress is we need to get the full reauthorization of No Child Left Behind done. We need to put to bed the last vestiges of this ill-conceived legislation. We need to also get H.R. 5, which was the House version of a bill that we proposed last year, that would limit the power of the federal government to usurp the authority of Congress and to try to govern public education through executive fiat. We need to limit the access of the federal government through their agencies of trying to control local decision-making, local values, and local control. We need to stand up and stand strong for public education.
In this year's session, I would certainly like to see the legislators address the time frame and some of the deadlines surrounded by Common Core. It would be nice to ease into the requirements and the park assessments and do some tests and some dry runs. But I would certainly like to see some attention given to orchestrating a better plan for schools in Louisiana to ease into Common Core. I like the idea of having the standards high and giving our children the best opportunity as possible to compete on a global level, because that's what it's all about. However, I think it would be fair to our teachers and our administrators if we have the opportunity to set the stage for success, and that would do it.
When I talk about issues regarding education, I think they could all be summed up in one thing. I think that critics of public education, as well as those people who are firm supporters of public education, I think we all agree that the top 1/3 of the children in the state of Louisiana are on par with the best children across America and across the entire world. It's the bottom 2/3 of youngsters that we have to be concerned about. And the debate and the issue is, how do you best meet the needs of those youngsters? What are the programs and practices that we need to put in place to make that happen? And everybody's got some theories about that. And the debates that's going on right now, and the discussions that's going on right now, which programs, which practices are best to achieve the results that we're trying to achieve. And those results that we're looking for is a greater achievement on the part of that group of youngsters.
We've seen our efforts by some groups to create charters and vouchers and so on. They can be a legitimate topic of discussion, particularly charters in some situations, but what we're seeing more and more are private interests that are trying to promote this agenda for their own personal benefit. And we're seeing a lot of negative consequences of that. And we also are not seeing any real significant improvement in student achievement anywhere those experiments have been tried.
Louisiana School Boards Association has put together what it calls a framework for legislation, and those frameworks include some of the legislation that relates to funding. Some of those refer to, and that funding is through the MFP formula and how it's distributed and so forth. It also has to do with issues that affect funding. We're not necessarily asking for additional, but we're asking for some relief on some issues that affect the funding for public education. For example, the retirement situation. There's many issues relating to teacher retirement that school boards will find themselves deeper and deeper and deeper into a hole if those issues are not attended to through legislation that should be crafted during this particular legislative session. So those are probably the two biggest that I have issues with at this particular time. Of course, we'll be happy to share a copy of our, frameworks with you and with various other individuals. We'll be sharing that over the next several days.
In Rapides, I would say that we're challenged just as other parishes with funding and making sure that when we spend our money that it goes toward the kids and we're not frivolous with how we spend it. But the biggest challenge we have is making sure that we maintain our current funding and that we make good decisions for those. Common Core, in terms of academically, that is also a big challenge. We have an administration, however, that has wrapped their arms around it, and we're giving our teachers as much support and as many tools as possible to be able to meet the standards that we're now being faced with. But in recapping, I would say the biggest challenges will be the Common Core and also our funding.
From what I read and what I see and what I've experienced, I think the commitment that we are going to need a cultural shift, because public education is paid for by the public. People decide to be a part of a democracy, a collective democracy, and they vote people in office for collective security and collective services. And throughout the 237-year history of our country, that idea of agreeing to elect people to office, to paying tax and fees, or to do things that's good for the community. But that only works if everybody is into that, contributing to the good of the community, for security, for education, for public service. And the School Board Association become the advocates for that education arm. And I think there's an expectation of people that when they say they don't want to pay more taxes or they don't like how the money is being spent, that they got to remember that the community exists through the collective participation of everybody in the community. It's not some people who might say, well, I'm going to put my kids in private school. Now I don't have to make any contributions to the greater community, the public school system. That's like saying, well, I only drive on Sunday and I don't want to pay road tax the rest of the week. It doesn't work. So we've got to stay front and center and remind everybody that funding public education, supporting public education, and making sure everybody understands public education is not a bad word. It's an opportunity. As a witness and as a veteran of public education who went through the public school system, I know it's effective. It's the most effective means we have to educate the masses, over 700,000 students, and it is the program that should have priority when it comes to educating our students in Louisiana.
The students you are educating today are going to have to take these issues on. In order to do that, we're going to have to make some changes. We have to make a cultural shift. It's going to cause some of you in the room to get a little uncomfortable. Because the most popular kid in the school today is who? Go ahead and say it. Some no-net quarterback. Them no-nets, Drew Brees of the world will not save Louisiana. You got it? If you picked up the paper in your hometown, what is the biggest section? The one that talks about school achievement or the one that talks about sports? Who is the high-paid educator on LSU campus? Is it the president or the coach? I'm telling you, unless we do a systemic change in America, we'll continue to have the same problems. You get what you praise. Who has the best opportunity on the front page of the paper? The quarterback or the 4.0? Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, we've got to do a cultural change. You can do all you want to get this thing organized, publicized, and everything else. Until those kids understand that it's okay to be good and to learn how to read and to be classified as a book person, we're going to continue to have challenge. If people think the only way to get recognition, and kids do that a lot, how to get recognition, how they are recognized for their accomplishments. They're going to run faster than they're going to read. I have nothing against sports, trust me. I didn't necessarily have a sport gene, but I believe and I enjoy it. So how are we going to create that cultural shift in the school where the principal know the names of every kid with a B+ average, as well as he know who catching the ball on Friday night? Hello. I'm not saying we take away something we're good at. I'm just saying that the most important thing in the school ought to be what? Education.
I think our strength is in our unity, to act as one This is one of the biggest demographics in the state, 700,000 students who don't have a voice. They're students. So for this group to be able to support every school board in every parish, and if all the parishes come to the state legislation, each one of them have their own agenda, they can be easily defeated. But to come as a unified group with allied organizations from teachers, unions to superintendents association, they speak from a position of strength and a unity of purpose. And their voice is being heard. So Louisiana School Board Association is making a difference and making sure that they're all speaking with the same voice on the same subjects, the same priorities.
What are some of the specific things that you think would better prepare your students for the new global economy?
Definitely setting the standards higher. When we look at other countries as compared to the United States, and we're talking a global market, we have to look at new things, maybe as extending the school time. Some countries have year-round schools. Some of the time of days in certain states, and also in a couple countries that I know of, have extended that day. So we have to look outside of the box and outside of the norm of what we're currently doing.
The expanding global economy will affect the amount of money that's available for public education. What has happened generally in Louisiana in particular as it relates to funding for public education? If you would look at the demands that have been placed on public education. Education is, and school people are being asked to respond to numerous social problems that relate to the social development of children. They ask to respond to psychological and medical problems, and the funding for that, legislators and others say that we are going to put money into the pot to deal with those issues. But no, we can't find that the size of the pot get any bigger. What we find is that it's a shell game. We move money from some place and give it to a specific program, but the size of the pot, it just simply means that something else doesn't get done. So the whole issue of global economy, in my judgment, if we're going to respond to the need to do a better job at what we do in trying to educate kids, we're going to have to look at the entire issue of how do we fund. Right now it's called the Minimum Foundation Program. The minimum, we'll give you the minimum necessary, and the kind of challenges that we have as educators, I'm not so sure that we can do it with a minimum bank account.
What we'd like to see is leaders in this country stand up and support public education, both in terms of funding and in terms of providing the kind of support for local elected officials to make the best decisions in the interest of their own communities.
My appreciation for that key ingredient of leadership is to be able to create a team that can work together. A team who may have some differences, but they understand at the end of the day they can only get their tasks done by working together. That they celebrate and work on the unity among them, the things that they agree on, and they continue to discuss those things that they need to refine, that they may have some differences. And the key responsibility of leadership is to create that team, because it's through teamwork that we accomplish things inside our democracy.
We'd like to present, on behalf of the Louisiana School Boards Association and its 645 elected school board members from around the state of Louisiana, and on behalf of the officers, I'd like for President John Smith from St. Charles Parish, president of our association, to help me recognize two very special public servants that have joined us today. Last year, LSBA implemented what we deem the LSBA Friend of Public Education Award. Our first one was last year, and that went to Representative John Bell Edwards for all of his assistance over the last year. Thank you. This year, we've decided to honor, for all their hard work and support as Bessie Board members and our State Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, two public servants that go above and beyond the call of duty to support public education in Louisiana. Gotten to know these two people very well. One I've known for quite some time as a former school board member in the same parish where I served. She not only has lived and breathed public education all of her life, she talks the talk and walks the walk. And we can count on these two people, the first one being Miss Lottie Beebe. And I'm going to try and hurry up and call up her sidekick on Bessie, who we also want to thank for her public service to us, who has the compassion that's needed to be a public servant and truly cares about students in Louisiana, Miss Carolyn Hill. Louisiana School Boards Association Friend of Public Education Award. Let us think of education as the means of developing our greatest abilities, because in each of us there is a private hope and dream which fulfilled can be translated into benefit for everyone and greater strength for our nation. John F. Kennedy, 38th President of the United States, awarded to Carolyn Hill and Miss Lottie Beebe. Thank you. Each year, LSBA recognizes a senator and a representative who really, really work to support public education. This year, we had a number of champions in the legislature, but these two gentlemen stood out, stuck by the Louisiana School Boards Association, and more importantly, stood up for the students, the over 700,000 public education students in Louisiana. This year's Legislators of the Year awards first go to a gentleman who has the institutional knowledge in regards to the mystery funding formula that we talk about called the MFP, and we're very fortunate to have his wealth of experience in the Senate to help advocate for public school students in Louisiana. When the going got tough, he stood up for the school boards and the teachers and the students that are part of our public school system here in Louisiana, and down to the 11th hour of the 11th day, as the budget was being formulated and the decisions were being made to include a one-time $69 million supplement into our budget that would be distributed to our local school systems, he was our champion in the Senate. We'd now like for you to help us show appreciation to Senator Ed Murray.
Thank you very much. This was actually a real surprise. I didn't know I was going to be receiving this. But I do want to say that it's very easy to stand up for public education. That's why I was educated through the public school systems in New Orleans and received a great education, so it's really easy to do that. I've got several family members who are public educators as well, and all of my Sunday school teachers were too, so I didn't have much of a choice to do that. But I do want to say that I really want to congratulate you all on the work that you all have done over the last year to kind of change the tide of what's happening in public education in the state. You really got to stick with it to make sure we continue to fight. Thanks again.
This gentleman, when he gives you his word, he keeps it. And that's a rare trait in these times that we live in. Please help us to show appreciation to Representative Kenny Hammond as our representative of the year.
Thank y'all. I really want this, kind of wasn't expecting this today, but I really appreciate it. I know, you guys work hard every single day to do the best thing that you can do for public education. I certainly appreciate the work that all you board members do and the group as an organization. And coming from a public education, went to school, graduated in public education. My wife is like they say, is a teacher, and I'm lucky enough to have two great school systems in my district, and two of the top, I guess. I also have one that's we've made a turn, and we're coming around this year, making some good results. So I'm proud of the school systems in my district, and I'm proud of each and every one of you guys, and I'll continue to work hard to support you. Thank you.
Organizations like ours need lots of support to be able to conduct these type of events. And at this time, we'd like to recognize some very special sponsors, some business partners that we work with as an association, organizations that work in all of our individual school districts across the state of Louisiana that have come and helped us out at our convention. I'd like to start by recognizing our conference-wide sponsor, Office Depot. I'd like to recognize Ms. Samantha Norton, Cindy Rutledge, Sam Mason, and Billy Grimmett, if you would come up to the front, please. We'd ask that you assemble, as we call you, up near the LSBA banners. Our next special sponsor is Apple Inc. We'd like to thank Ms. Maureen Grimm and Mark Eubank for their support and for conducting the first LSBA Technology Learning Lounge for our school board members to be exposed to cutting-edge devices that can be used in our classrooms to enhance the educational experience for our students in Louisiana. So please thank Apple. A special note, we'd also like to announce that Apple has worked with 2 school districts in Louisiana and has declared them Apple Schools of Distinction. That would be Iberville Parish School Board and the West Feliciana Parish School Board. Congratulations to those 2 districts. Another support of the organization is AXI Solutions, all the Promethean boards you see out there that we like to have in every classroom across the state of Louisiana as well. We'd like to thank AXI and Ms. Summer Dejean. Longtime supporters of the Louisiana School Boards Association and big supporters of our local school systems, Ed Gear, Mr. Kevin Ebar, and Albie Hanks. Thank you for your support. Some new business partners that we have come to know, definitely gentlemen of integrity that work to help to protect our school systems across the state of Louisiana. Homeland Safety Systems, Mr. Tony Marquis and Mike Elliott. Thank you. As we move into higher standards and raising rigor for our students, we have some very special sponsors with us today from the Learning Institute, Mr. Joel Rush and Matt Adams. Thank you for supporting school systems in Louisiana and the School Board Association. Probably one of our longest and most valued sponsors who we've gotten to know extremely well over the years and who've always supported the Louisiana School Boards Association. Taylor and Sons, Mr. Johnny Rozier and Sylvia Norris, thank you for your support. And finally, we are offering, through a partnership with the Louisiana School Boards Association, a new e-governance system so we can get away from all of those copies of paper that school board members have to get for their school board meetings. And we'd like to recognize Board Docs, Mr. Michael Hanahan. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting school boards. The Louisiana Association of School Executives, LACE. I'd like to call Mr. Rogers Pope, who is the Executive Director, to please come up. The Louisiana State Association of Parents and Teachers, PTA, gotta have our parents involved. Their representative is Mr. Sonny Savoy. We'd ask for him to come up. The Louisiana Association of Principals have also agreed to the following 5 principals that we're going to go through in just a minute. They could not be here today, but I have correspondence from their association leader. Their board of directors are very much in favor of all of us standing together on the 5 principles I'm going to briefly go over in a minute. The Louisiana Association of Educators, Ms. Debbie Moe, would you please come up? The Louisiana Federation of Teachers, Mr. Steve Monahan, would you please come up? We definitely want to get a photograph of these folks standing together. Superintendent's Organization, LSBA President, Parent-Teacher Organization, Teacher and Employee Organization heads, Principals Association, School Boards Association, working together as an army of advocates for public education in Louisiana to support the following. United Advocacy for prioritizing public education funding regarding the state funding formula. United Advocacy for a more strategic and comprehensive transition to raising standards and adopting the accompanying national assessments. United Advocacy for a non-punitive accountability system and flexible employee evaluation system. United Advocacy for addressing issues regarding privatization of public education in Louisiana. United Advocacy regarding meaningful and sincere stakeholder input in all education policy matters. Divided we fall, united we stand. Working together, we can facilitate practical initiatives to improve public education in Louisiana, with the #1 goal of raising student achievement always being our guiding principle. Please show appreciation for this effort, and please understand that this is not anything we've taken very lightly, and that we will be an army of advocates from this point on, standing together for those very basic principles that are so important to improving public education in Louisiana. Thank you.